The fight for the Amazulu royal throne continues to play out ahead of the traditional coronation of King Misuzulu kaZwelithini. Misuzulu was recognized by President Cyril Ramaphosa as the rightful heir. However, yesterday, during a press briefing, Prince Misuzulu, who is the brother of the late King Zwelithini, unveiled Prince Buzabazi as the rightful successor. While on Sunday, Prince Makate entered the kraal as part of the traditional processes, saying he had the support of the royal family. And in another twist, the first wife of the late King, Zulu, and her two daughters have been granted leave to appeal a court ruling which dismissed their challenge of his will. It's unclear how these developments will impact this weekend's events. For more on this, I'm joined by political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been many twists to this matter, with contenders coming out to say that they are the rightful heir to the throne. What's your take on how this could affect the coronation taking place tomorrow?
No, my understanding, my sister, first of all, thank you for having me and good evening to your viewers. My understanding is that there is nothing to worry about in as far as tomorrow's event is concerned, for a number of reasons. One, we know that the Prince Misuzulu, because we are currently calling them princes, all of them, until everything has been concluded. But the reality of the matter is that there is a general consensus that Prince Misuzulu is the person who is going to succeed the late king, that is King Zwelithini, who passed on. So the reality of the matter, therefore, is that the event that is happening tomorrow, if you look at the build-up to the event, including the killing of the lion, because Isilo basically is a Zulu word for the lion. So the killing of the lion in itself shows that the event is going to happen as per the Zulu tradition. And then I don't see anyone stopping it tomorrow, in as much as we didn't see anyone stopping Princess Makate entering the kraal last week. Because what he did is what he believed was right. And then Misuzulu will be going into the kraal tomorrow just to confirm what has already been confirmed both by the provincial legislature and also by the president of the country. So basically, from where I'm standing, I don't see any glitches tomorrow. The event should go ahead as planned.
When Prince Makate entered the kraal last weekend, he spoke out to say he had received criticism that it had not rained. But he said it had rained in other parts while this process was happening. How significant is the rain aspect as the ceremony is set to get underway tomorrow?
No, it is significant. You recall that when the late Isilo passed on, and we're preparing for the funeral, as people normally refer to it, but in Isizulu we call it ukutshalwa kwenkosi, planting of the king. It rained cats and dogs, which was a sign that indeed the big tree had fallen. So whenever these events then happen, they serve as a sign that what you are doing is in fact accepted by the ancestors, because as the Zulu nation, we do believe in ancestral beliefs. And therefore, whenever somebody passes on, that person goes to be with the ancestors, and then the rain then shows that that person has been accepted by or welcomed by the ancestors. Similarly, when you enthrone a king and it rains, then of course that is a sign also that the ancestors are welcoming the ceremony. So those are kinds of things that happen, but it doesn't mean that if it doesn't rain, therefore the event did not go well. It only means that if it rains, then everybody can see that indeed the ancestors are happy and they are appreciative of the event that is taking place.
Do you think that perhaps with so many contenders coming for the throne, irrespective of whether President Cyril Ramaphosa has made the announcement, and we also heard last week a lot of talk around how this is not a government matter, this is a matter between families, and families have spoken. Do you think that this sort of debate and the squabbles are impacting the Amazulu nation?
These squabbles should not be looked at in a negative light. It's not the first time that this thing is happening. Even the late King Zwelithini, when he ascended the throne, it wasn't easy. there was contest, there was competition, it will always be there. You will recall also what happened to King Shaka. There were people who were vying for his position to the extent that they even assassinated him. So the fact that there are people who are contenders to the throne should not come as a surprise. In fact, it's not out of the ordinary. It's something that will always happen. And then to the first part of your comment with regards to a government getting involved and then, of course, Zulu custom being invoked, the reality of the matter is President Cyril Ramaphosa wrote the letter after the processes had been concluded from the Zulu side. Ordinarily, when a king passes on, it's known in the family, that is in the royal family, as to how they handle the matter. Even us as citizens, we don't get involved. It's a family matter, it's a royal matter. They know how to handle it. But then historically and culturally, we know that even if you are the 15th wife, if you come from royalty, you automatically pass all everybody in the queue, and then you take position one spot. So that is known. That is one issue on the table at the moment. But then the second issue, which then speaks to Princess Makate, is this Zulu custom, which is called ukufakwa kwengane esiswini. Basically meaning that you are placing a baby in somebody else's womb. What it means, therefore, it's a cultural practice. Even if you don't have a mother, you are then given to someone else in the family so that you become the child of that family. This is what happened with Princess Makate, because King Zwelithini got him before he got married. So then he was then basically placed in the womb of the late Queen Manfombi of Eswatini, basically meaning that he is then the eldest son of the late King Zwelithini. But then if you are the firstborn, that in itself does not make you the king or the heir to the throne. There are many other factors that kick in, one of which is if you are left-handed like me, for example, even if I'm the firstborn, I cannot be the heir to the throne. And if you have a mental problem, you cannot be an heir to the throne. If you are ill-behaved, you cannot be the heir to the throne. So there are many other issues that come into the picture before you decide, as a family, you decide who the heir to the throne will be. By virtue of being the firstborn, which in English they call primogeniture, that is not enough for you to be the heir to the throne.
With all the prerequisites that you make mention of, the role is a huge responsibility. On the other end, we know that a village has many chiefs. Across the provinces there are chiefs. So when it comes to the actual role of a king presiding over a nation on a given day, what responsibilities are they tasked with?
No, the king basically oversees everyone in that particular nation. In the Zulu nation, for example, we have a number of amakosi, and all those amakosi pay allegiance to Isilo, or to the king of the Zulu nation. It was the same thing with the late king, and it will be the same thing with the new king who will be ascending to the throne. What basically this means is that on certain occasions we'll find these amakosi coming from their different nations and then coming to the king to pay their lineage, basically. What they do normally, they come with a bull or they come with a couple of cattle to give to the king, to greet the king, as it were. And then whenever there is a coronation that is going to take place amongst the amakosi that fall under Isilo, Isilo then will be the one presiding over that particular incident, basically saying that I give you the right to be my eyes and ears. Because amakosi do oversee the respective areas, but they are the eyes and ears of Isilo. So the Isilo then presides over everyone else in that particular nation. So the same applies to the Zulu nation, that Isilo is the highest ranking person amongst all amakosi. That is why he's not normally referred to as Inkosi, but is referred to as Isilo, which then will translate to a lion. So he's the lion that oversees everybody in the jungle, technically speaking.
So right now, the preparation is underway for the coronation to take place. What will happen after it? Are there any specific rituals? What is the process?
No, we know that the event is taking place tomorrow, but in reality, the event is taking place tonight. So what's going to happen is in a secluded occasion or event, King Misuzulu will enter the crawl. What is going to happen tomorrow when everybody else is there is that they will be just celebrating, welcoming their new king. But the reality of the matter is you have a sacred event that is going to happen tonight. And once that event has happened, then of course it means that the king is now officially the king. The other processes like the enthronement of the king, giving him whatever needs to be given to him in terms of the 2003 legislation, those are just government processes. But in terms of Zulu custom and culture, once the king has entered the crawl and has been welcomed by the ancestors, then of course that makes that king officially the king of the nation. So basically by the end of the day tomorrow, and technically by the early hours of the morning, then King Misuzulu will be the king of the Zulu nation. Let alone the controversies that we are hearing, those are things that they are going to handle through the right channels, going to courts and doing all those things. But culturally, King Misuzulu will be officially the king of the Zulu nation starting from early hours of today, or early hours of the morning, after he has entered the crawl tonight.
Very well. Thank you so much for that, political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, explaining the processes that will need to take place for King Misuzulu's coronation, which, of course, will be taking place and making him king by the early hours of the morning.